Listen, I have been an instructor at the Galactic War Academy for 17 cycles. 17. In that time, I have watched thousands of recruits walk through those sliding doors, full of pride, bravado, and the kind of stupid confidence that only comes from never having been truly tested. Most of them wash out in the first week. The rest, they make it through, become adequate soldiers, go on to serve in whatever corner of the galaxy needs bodies with guns. It is a system that works. It has always worked, until the humans showed up. My name is Vorn. I am a Keltharian. We are not a particularly impressive species, physically speaking. We stand maybe 6 feet tall on our hind legs, we have 4 arms, which is useful for multitasking, and our exoskeletons are thick enough to stop small caliber rounds. We are also patient. Very patient. Which is why, I suppose, we make excellent instructors. You need patience when dealing with young idiots who think war is glorious. The day I met Jack Reeves was unremarkable. It was the beginning of the term, and I was standing in the assembly hall with 347 new cadets, all from different species across the coalition. Tall ones, short ones, ones with tentacles, ones with scales, ones with too many eyes or not enough limbs. The usual mix. And there, in the third row, standing perfectly still with his hands clasped behind his back, was the humans. Let me tell you about humans. They are soft. Weak, no natural armor, no claws, no venom, no wings, nothing. They are about as threatening as a Zephian tree slug, and that is a creature that literally cannot move faster than half an inch per hour. When the Galactic Coalition accepted humanity as a member species, most of us figured they would serve in support roles. Logistics, maybe. Administration. Something where their fragile bodies would not be a liability. We were, as it turns out, extremely wrong about that. But I am getting ahead of myself. Jack Reeves was not impressive. He was 5'11", which is average for a human, with brown hair cut short in the military style and gray eyes that did not seem to focus on anything in particular. He had the build of someone who exercised regularly but was not genetically gifted. When he spoke during the initial roll call, his voice was quiet, polite, unremarkable. I noted his name on my datapad and thought nothing else of it. The first 2 weeks of training were standard. Physical conditioning, classroom instruction on tactics, weapons systems, coalition law, the usual attempts to forge a group of disparate individuals into something resembling a cohesive unit. Reeves performed adequately. Not the best in his class, not the worst. He ran the obstacle courses without complaint, scored average on the written tests, and kept his mouth shut during drill exercises. If anything, he was boring. Then came the Crucible. The Crucible is not officially part of the curriculum. It is more of a tradition, a hazing ritual, if you want to be crude about it. Every year, the instructors select one night during the training cycle and we run every single cadet through an exercise designed to break them. Not physically. Physically, it is demanding but manageable. No, the Crucible breaks you mentally. It is designed to find your limit, push you past it, and force you to quit. We do this because war is not about physical strength. Any idiot can lift weights and run fast. War is about what happens when everything goes wrong, when you are exhausted and terrified and bleeding, and you have to decide whether to keep going or give up. The cadets who quit during the Crucible, they were going to quit eventually anyway. Better to find out now than in actual combat, when their failure could get someone else killed. The exercise itself is simple. You put on full combat gear, 60 pounds of armor, weapons, ammunition, and equipment. Then you run. 5 miles through rough terrain, followed by an obstacle course, followed by combat drills, followed by more running, on and on and on, and no breaks, no water except what you carry, no food, just movement, exhaustion, and pain. We run it at night because darkness makes everything worse. But the goal is not to complete it. The goal is to find out when you will quit. Most cadets make it 2, maybe 3 hours before they tap out. The tough ones, the stubborn ones, they might last 4 or 5. The record, held by a Kralix warrior with genetically enhanced muscles and a neural pain suppressor, was 7 hours and 12 minutes. I did not expect Jack Reeves to last even 2 hours. The Crucible began at 2200 hours. It was a cold night, which was intentional. Cold makes muscles stiff, makes thinking slower, makes the whole miserable experience even more miserable. 347 cadets lined up on the starting field, all wearing full gear, all looking nervous. Some were bouncing on their feet, trying to stay warm. Others were silent, focused. A few were already pale with anticipation. Reeves stood near the middle of the formation. He was stretching his legs slowly, methodically, his face blank. No fear, no excitement, just calm. I gave the signal. The Crucible began. The first hour was chaos. Cadets sprinting, stumbling, pushing each other to keep up. The terrain was deliberately rough. Loose gravel, sudden inclines, muddy patches designed to slow you down and sap your strength. Within the first mile, the formation had already spread out significantly. The fast ones pulled ahead. The slow ones fell behind. And the ones who were already questioning their life choices started to lag dangerously. By hour 2, we had our first quits. 17 cadets total, all from species with low endurance thresholds. They staggered to the side of the course, dropped their gear, and sat down in the mud. No one judged them. This was expected. Normal. Reeves was still running. He was not fast. He was in the middle of the pack, keeping a steady pace that looked almost mechanical. His breathing was controlled. His steps were even. If I had to describe his expression, I would say he looked bored. Hour 3. The first obstacle course. Walls to climb, trenches to crawl through, ropes to swing across. This is where a lot of cadets quit, because it is not just exhausting, it is humiliating. Crawling through mud under barbed wire while instructors yell at you, falling off ropes into cold water, watching other cadets pass you, because your arms are too tired to pull yourself up. It breaks something in people. We lost 43 more cadets during this section. Reeves made it through. Slowly, he fell twice. Once into the water, once off a climbing wall onto the mud below. Both times, he got up, wiped his face, and kept going. No cursing, no complaining, just up and moving. I was starting to find him irritating. Hour 4. Combat drills. This is where we really start applying pressure. You pair cadets up and make them spar while exhausted. Not full contact, but enough to hurt. Enough to make you question whether you want to keep doing this. The twist is that we change opponents every 5 minutes, so you never get a break, never get comfortable. Just fight, stop, fight someone else, stop, fight again. Over and over. 86 cadets quit during the combat drills. Reeves fought all of them. He lost most of his matches. He was not a particularly skilled fighter, and exhaustion made him sloppy. A Dravik warrior twice his size threw him into the ground hard enough to crack his helmet. A Sylvan cadet with 4 arms struck him repeatedly in the ribs, and I could see him wincing with each hit. But every time he got knocked down, he got back up. Every time the whistle blew, he moved to the next opponent. At one point, another instructor, Kellis, leaned over to me and said, "That human is either very brave or very stupid." "Probably both," I replied. Hour 5. More running. But now we added weight, random objects, ammunition crates, disabled equipment, things you would need to carry in actual combat. Find it on the course, pick it up, carry it for a mile, then trade it for something heavier. The load increases every mile. Your back starts screaming, your legs start shaking. Your brain starts whispering that this is pointless, that you have already proven yourself, that quitting is not failure, it is just being reasonable. 109 cadets quit during this section. We were down to 88 remaining. Reeves was still there. He was carrying a damaged shield generator that probably weighed 40 pounds. His pace had slowed significantly. His breathing was ragged now, coming in short gasps. Sweat was pouring down his face despite the cold. But he was still moving. Hour 6. The sun was still down. It would not rise for another 3 hours. This is the worst part of the Crucible, the dark hours. When your body is screaming at you, when you are so tired you can barely think, when quitting seems not just reasonable but necessary for survival. This is when we lose the most cadets. We set up the final obstacle, a trench system. You have to low crawl through mud and freezing water for 200 yards, then climb out and immediately do strength exercises. Push-ups, pull-ups, squats. While your muscles are failing and your mind is fogging over. Then back into the trench. Over and over. 51 cadets quit within the first 30 minutes of this section. I watched Reeves drop into the trench. The water came up to his chest. Cold. Black. Disgusting. He took a breath, submerged himself, and started crawling. Slow. So slow I thought he might actually be stuck. But he was moving. Inch by inch, pulling himself forward through the mud. When he climbed out, his entire body was shaking. Not from fear. From exhaustion. From the cold. From muscles that had been pushed beyond any reasonable limit. He dropped to his hands and started doing push-ups. 1, 2, 3. His form was terrible. His arms were wobbling. On the 8th one, he collapsed face first into the mud. That is it, I thought. He is done. But then he pushed himself up, got to his knees, onto his feet, walked back to the trench, dropped in, started crawling again. 37 more cadets quit in hour 7. By hour 8, we were down to 12 cadets. 12 out of 347. This was already shaping up to be one of the most brutal crucibles in Academy history. The 12 who remained were all from species known for extreme endurance. Krath, who could regulate their body temperature at will. Irvin, whose muscles literally did not produce lactic acid. Volvan, who had redundant organ systems and could keep going long after others would have died. And one human. Kellis looked at her datapad, then looked at me. How is he still going? I had no answer. Humans were not built for this. They had no special adaptations, no enhanced biology, no survival mechanisms that would explain why Reeves was still on his feet. By all accounts, he should have quit hours ago. But he had not. Hour 9. The sun still had not risen. The 12 remaining cadets were beyond exhausted. They were operating on pure stubborn refusal to quit at this point. No one was running anymore. It was a slow shuffle, a zombie-like trudge through the final series of obstacles. Most of them were silent, too tired even to groan. Reeves was in the worst shape of all of them. His left leg was dragging slightly. His breathing sounded wet, which suggested fluid in his lungs from the cold water. His face was gray and his eyes were half closed. But he was still moving. 3 more cadets quit. Hour 10. We gave them the final test. A hill, not a mountain, just a hill. But when you have been moving for 10 straight hours, when every muscle in your body is screaming, when your brain has long since stopped processing rational thought, a hill might as well be Mount Everest. At the top of the hill was a flag. Reach it, and the crucible is over. You can quit. 4 cadets started up the hill to quit halfway. That left a Krath female named Thessa and Jack Reeves. Thessa was struggling, but she was moving steadily. Krath were built for this. Her breathing was controlled, her steps measured, and she would make it. I had no doubt. Reeves, on the other hand, looked like he was dying. Every step was a monumental effort. He would take a step, pause, sway slightly, then take another step. His hands were clutching at the grass, pulling himself forward. At one point he fell to his knees, and I thought that was it. He was done. But he started crawling. On his hands and knees. Like an animal, he crawled up that hill. Thessa reached the top first. She grabbed the flag, raised it overhead, and let out a victory roar that echoed across the training grounds. Then she collapsed. Reeves was still crawling. Kellis turned to me. Should we stop him? He looks like he might actually die. I considered it. The medical team was standing by. If he lost consciousness, we would pull him out immediately. But as long as he was moving under his own power, the Crucible rules were clear. He could keep going until he quit, or until he reached the top. Let him go, I said. The sun started to rise. Hour 11. Reeves was 3/4 of the way up the hill. The other instructors had gathered to watch. Word had spread. A human was still going. A human, the weakest species in the academy, had outlasted 345 other cadets and was still refusing to quit. His crawl had slowed to almost nothing. He would reach forward with one hand, drag himself maybe 6 inches, pause, then do it again. His breathing was ragged, desperate. Blood was dripping from his hands where the rocks and grass had torn open his skin. But he was still moving. Why? Kellis asked. What is the point? He has already proven himself. He has gone further than anyone expected. Why not just quit? I did not answer because I did not know. There was no logic to it, no tactical reason to keep going. Pride, maybe? Stubbornness? Insanity? The sun crept higher. Golden light spilled across the training grounds, illuminating the hill, the flag at the top, and the lone human crawling toward it. Hour 12. Reeves reached the top. He did not grab the flag. He did not roar in triumph. He simply crawled the last few feet, reached the flagpole, and stopped. Then, slowly, using the pole for support, he pulled himself to his feet. He stood there, swaying, barely conscious, the sunrise turning the sky orange and pink behind him. Then he raised his right hand and saluted. Not to the flag, not to the academy, but to us, the instructors watching below. And then he collapsed. The medical team rushed up the hill immediately. They loaded him onto a stretcher and carried him down while administering oxygen and checking his vitals. He was alive, exhausted beyond measure, suffering from hypothermia, dehydration, and minor injuries, but alive. Thessa, who had recovered enough to stand, watched them carry him past. She looked at me, confusion clear on her face. Why did he keep going? He could have stopped. He could have quit at any time. Why? I looked at the human on the stretcher, unconscious, broken, victorious. Because he is human, I said. And that was when I realized we had made a terrible mistake. We had assumed humans were weak because they lacked natural weapons, because their bodies were fragile, because they had no biological advantages. But we had forgotten to account for one thing. Humans do not quit. Not when it is reasonable. Not when it is logical. Not when every single rational thought in their head is screaming at them to stop. They simply refuse. It is not bravery. It is not even courage. It is something else. Something stranger and more terrifying. It is stubbornness raised to the level of insanity. Jack Reeves spent 2 days in the medical bay. When he was released, he returned to training as if nothing had happened. He did not brag about lasting 12 hours. He did not mention the Crucible at all. When other cadets asked him about it, he just shrugged and said, "I finished the course." That is all. But something had changed. The other cadets looked at him differently now. The instructors looked at him differently. He had not just completed the Crucible. He had redefined what was possible. And me? I started paying very close attention to the humans in our academy. Because if one human could do that, what could a whole army of them do? That thought kept me awake at night. The weeks following the Crucible were strange, not because anything dramatic happened. Quite the opposite. Training continued as normal. The cadets ran drills, attended classes, practiced weapons handling, learned squad tactics. The same routine that had been followed for decades. But there was a shift in atmosphere that I could not quite name. The human had become a ghost story, not Reeves specifically. He still kept to himself, still performed adequately but not exceptionally, still said little and showed no emotion. No, the story that spread through the academy was about what humans could endure. Cadets from other training groups started asking questions. Is it true a human lasted 12 hours? Is it true he crawled the last part? Is it true he saluted before passing out? The answers were yes, yes, and yes. Yes, and with each retelling the story grew larger. I tried to shut it down, told the cadets to focus on their own training, not on myths and legends. But you cannot stop soldiers from telling stories. It is in their nature. And humans, I was learning, made for very good stories. 3 months after the Crucible, we received new orders. The academy was being deployed, not the instructors, but the cadets, all of them. This was highly unusual. Typically, cadets completed their full year of training before being assigned to active units. But the coalition was stretched thin. A mining colony on the edge of Sector 12 had gone dark, and intelligence suggested hostile forces had taken control. The mission was simple. Go in, secure the colony, evacuate any survivors, eliminate the threat. Simple. Right. I was assigned as tactical advisor to Platoon 7, which included 30 cadets from the most recent training cycle. And yes, Jack Reeves was among them. He had been assigned as a rifleman, standard infantry, nothing special. When I read his name on the roster, I felt something I had not felt in years. Concern. Not for the mission. For what I might learn about humans when the shooting actually started. The transport ship took 2 days to reach Sector 12. During the flight, I watched the cadets prepare. Some were nervous, checking their equipment repeatedly, talking too much, laughing at jokes that were not funny. Others were silent, introspective, already trying to mentally prepare for combat. Reeves sat in the corner of the cargo hold, methodically cleaning his rifle. Over and over. Disassemble, clean, reassemble, check the sight, repeat. His face showed nothing. No fear. No excitement. Just focus. A Dravic cadet named Koreth sat down next to him. Koreth was massive even for a Dravic. 8 feet tall, arms like tree trunks, with natural armor plating that could stop most small arms fire. He had scored highest in combat drills and was widely considered the most dangerous fighter in the platoon. Nervous? Koreth asked, his voice a low rumble. Reeves did not look up from his rifle. No. You should be. First combat is always the hardest. Is this your first combat too? Koreth grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. Yes. But I am built for this. No offense, human, but your kind is fragile. You should stay in the back. Let those of us with armor take the hits. Reeves finally looked up. His gray eyes met Koreth's without blinking. I will do my job. You do yours. There was no hostility in his voice, just a statement of fact. Koreth laughed, clapped him on the shoulder hard enough to make most species stumble and walked away. Reeves went back to cleaning his rifle. I made a note to watch both of them during the operation. We landed on the mining colony at dawn. Local time, at least. The colony itself was a depressing collection of prefabricated structures built around 3 massive excavation sites. Everything was gray metal and brown dirt. No vegetation, no water features, nothing pleasant. It's just a place where people came to work and die slowly from lung disease. Except now they were dying quickly from something else. The landing zone was secure, but silent. No workers, no equipment running. No signs of life, just empty buildings, and an eerie quiet that made my dorsal spines itch with unease. Captain Torvald, a veteran Keltharian like myself, was in command of the operation. She gathered the platoon leaders, including myself, for a quick briefing. The intelligence was wrong. This is not a small hostile force. Scans indicate at least 200 combatants, heavily armed, dug into defensive positions throughout the colony. We are going in anyway because there are still life signs in the residential sector. Civilians. Trapped. We get them out. Then we level this place. 200 hostiles. We had 90 cadets, barely trained, most of whom had never fired a weapon outside of a practice range. The math was not good. Questions? Torvald asked. No one said anything. What was there to say? Orders were orders. Move out. Platoon 7 was assigned to the eastern sector. Our objective was a residential building where scans had detected life signs. Get in, secure the civilians, get them to the extraction point. Simple, except for the enemy fighters that definitely knew we were coming and were definitely waiting to kill us. We advanced in standard formation. 2 fire teams up front, 1 in reserve. I stayed with the reserve team, which included Reeves. As we moved through the empty streets, the silence grew heavier. No gunfire, no explosions, just the sound of boots on metal grating and the occasional crackle of radio chatter. "This is wrong," muttered Sergeant Hallex, a Volthan with 30 years of combat experience. "They should have hit us by now." He was right. We were exposed, moving through open ground with minimal cover. Any competent enemy would have ambushed us already. The fact that they had not meant either they were incompetent or they were waiting for something. We reached the residential building, a squat, ugly structure 5 stories tall with narrow windows and 1 main entrance. The life signs were coming from the 3rd floor. Hallex ordered the 1st fire team to breach and clear the ground floor, then we would move up. The 1st team went in. 5 seconds later, all hell broke loose. The explosion was massive. It blew out the front of the building, sending chunks of metal and concrete flying in all directions. 3 cadets were thrown backward by the blast. 2 did not get up. The 3rd was screaming, clutching what remained of his left arm. Ambush. The whole building was a trap. Gunfire erupted from surrounding structures. Automatic weapons, heavy caliber, fired from elevated positions with clear lines of sight on our position. The cadets scattered, diving for cover behind storage containers and debris. Some fired back. Others froze, paralyzed by fear and shock. Suppressing fire. Return fire now. Hallex was screaming orders, trying to organize a response, but it was chaos. The cadets were pinned down, rounds sparking off metal all around them, and the enemy had superior position and numbers. I looked for Reeves. Found him pressed against a storage container, rifle up, firing controlled bursts at a window where muzzle flashes indicated an enemy position. His face was calm. Focused, he would fire 3 rounds, duck, move to a new position, fire again. Textbook combat tactics. Then I saw Koreth. The big Dravik had charged forward, roaring, firing his heavy weapon from the hip like some kind of action hero. It was stupid and brave and exactly the kind of thing young soldiers do before they learn better, but he made it maybe 20 feet before a burst of fire caught him in the chest. His armor stopped most of it, but the impact knocked him down, and he was exposed in the open with nowhere to go. 3 enemy fighters appeared from a side building, moving to flank Koreth's position. They had him. He was dead. We all knew it. Reeves stood up. Just stood up, in the middle of a firefight, completely exposed. "Reeves, get down." I shouted, but he ignored me. He fired. 1 shot. An enemy fighter dropped. He shifted aim. Fired again. 2nd fighter down. The 3rd one turned toward him, raised his weapon, and Reeves shot him in the face before he could pull the trigger. 3 shots. 3 kills. In less than 5 seconds. Then Reeves ran. Not away from the fight, toward it. He sprinted across open ground, grabbed Koreth by his harness, and dragged him back to cover. Koreth probably weighed 300 pounds in full gear. Reeves dragged him like he was a bag of supplies. Bullets were hitting all around them. Sparks, dust, metal fragments flying everywhere. Reeves did not run faster. Did not panic. He just kept moving at the same steady pace, dragging Koreth until they were both behind cover. "You insane human," Koreth gasped, checking his armor for damage. "You could have been killed." Reeves was already reloading his rifle, but I was not. The firefight continued for another 20 minutes. Brutal, close-quarters urban combat with no room for error. We lost 8 cadets. Killed maybe 30 enemy fighters. Eventually, gunship support arrived and drove the rest into retreat. We secured the building, found 12 terrified civilian workers hiding in a basement, and got them to the extraction point. Mission accomplished. Barely. That night, back on the transport ship, Captain Torvald called me to her quarters. "Your report on Platoon 7?" she asked. I pulled up my datapad. 8 casualties. 5 dead, 3 wounded. Mission objectives achieved. Enemy resistance was heavier than expected. Cadets performed adequately given their limited training. And the human? Reeves? I paused. He performed exceptionally. Was 3 confirmed kills under fire. Rescued a wounded soldier from an exposed position. Remained calm throughout the engagement. Torvald leaned back in her chair. I watched the helmet cam footage. What he did should not have been possible. Humans do not have enhanced reflexes. They do not have combat instincts. They are not built for war. And yet, I agreed. What are they, Vorn? Really? I thought about Reeves crawling up that hill at sunrise. I thought about him standing in the middle of a firefight to save Koreth. I thought about the way he had looked at me after the battle, not proud, not scared, just ready for the next task. They are survivors, I said finally. Not because they are strong, not because they are fast or tough or well-armed, but because they refuse to die. They look at impossible situations, situations where any rational being would quit or run or surrender, and they just keep going. It is not logical. It is not even sane. But it works. Torvald was quiet for a moment. The coalition needs to know about this. They will not believe it. Not until they see it themselves. Then we will show them. The mission on Sector 12 was not an isolated incident. Over the next 4 months, Platoon 7 was deployed 6 more times. Each mission was worse than the last. Hostile territory, limited support, bad intelligence. The kind of operations where you expect heavy casualties and pray you achieve the objective before everyone dies. And every single time, Jack Reeves survived, more than survived. He thrived. He became the soldier everyone wanted in their squad. Not because he was the best shot, though his marksmanship was excellent. Not because he was the strongest or fastest, because he was neither. But because when everything went wrong, when the plan fell apart, when half the squad was wounded and the enemy was closing in, Reeves would not quit. There was a mission on Vera 3 where we were pinned down in a canyon for 16 hours. No water, limited ammunition, air support delayed by bad weather. Cadets were starting to talk about surrender. Reeves sat against a rock wall, rifle across his lap, and said, "We hold until they get here." And somehow we did. There was a mission on Praxis Station where we had to evacuate a medical facility under heavy fire. Reeves carried 7 wounded soldiers to the extraction point, 1 at a time, while being shot at. He made 7 trips through a kill zone and did not get hit once. When I asked him how, he shrugged and said, "I kept my head down." There was a mission on Talar Prime where enemy forces had us surrounded. 40 hostiles. 12 of us, no way out. Koreth, who by now had become Reeves's closest friend, said, "This is it. We are not walking away from this one." Reeves checked his ammunition and said, "Then we make it expensive for them." We held that position for 9 hours until reinforcements arrived. We lost 4 cadets. But we did not surrender. We did not run, because if Reeves was not quitting, no one else could justify quitting either. He became a symbol, not just for Platoon 7, but for the entire academy. The human who would not quit. The soldier who faced death with the same expression he used for cleaning his rifle. Calm, focused, utterly committed to doing his job no matter what. Other humans in the coalition military started hearing the stories. They started acting differently, pushing harder, taking risks, refusing to quit even when quitting was the smart option. It spread like a virus. Human units began developing reputations. Stubborn, relentless, slightly insane, and effective, terrifyingly effective. I spoke with Reeves only once about why he kept going. It was after a particularly brutal mission where we had lost 12 cadets securing a weapons depot. We were sitting in the cargo hold, both too exhausted to sleep, and I asked him the question that had been bothering me for months. Why do you not quit? You have been shot at, blown up, nearly killed more times than I can count. You could request a transfer. You could take a medical discharge. Why keep doing this? He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, because if I quit, someone else has to do it. And maybe they will not make it. So I keep going. That is not logical. You cannot save everyone. No, but I can try. And that was when I understood. Humans were not fearless. They felt fear just like every other species. They felt pain, exhaustion, despair, all of it. But they had this strange ability to acknowledge those feelings and then ignore them. To know that what they were doing was probably going to kill them and do it anyway because someone had to. It was not courage. Courage implies overcoming fear. This was something else. This was looking at fear, at pain, at death itself and saying, yeah, I see you. I am doing it anyway. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Though the war in Sector 12 eventually ended. The coalition secured the region, the hostile forces were eliminated or scattered, and the surviving cadets were promoted to full soldiers. Platoon 7 had suffered 40% casualties over the course of the campaign. But we had never failed a mission, never abandoned civilians, never surrendered. At the ceremony where they received their commendations, I watched Jack Reeves stand at attention with the others. He looked the same as he had on that first day. Average height, average build, gray eyes that did not reveal anything. If you did not know what he had done, you would never guess. He was just another soldier. But I knew. We all knew. After the ceremony, Koreth found me. The big Dravik had scars now, burns on his arms, a chunk missing from his shoulder armor where a blade had gotten through. He had survived because of Reeves. We all had, in one way or another. Instructor Vorn, I wanted to thank you. For what? For not pulling Reeves off that hill during the Crucible. I heard the instructors wanted to stop him. You said no. If you had stopped him, he would not have finished. And if he had not finished, he would not have been the soldier he became. And a lot of us would be dead. I nodded slowly. I did not know that would happen. I just wanted to see how far he would go. How far will humans go, do you think? We have only seen a few of them. A few dozen in the whole coalition military. What happens when there are thousands? Millions? I looked at Reeves, who was talking quietly with some of the other survivors, laughing at something, looking completely normal. I do not know, I said honestly, but I think the galaxy is going to find out. And I think a lot of people are going to be very surprised. Koreth grinned. Good. Let them be surprised. I am just glad the humans are on our side. I watched Reeves walk away, heading back to the barracks, ready for whatever came next. Yeah, I was glad they were on our side too, because the alternative was unthinkable. Later that evening, I updated my official report on human integration into coalition forces. I kept it factual, professional, backed up with data and mission records, but I added one note at the end, flagged for command review. Humans possess no physical advantages over other coalition species. However, they demonstrate psychological resilience that exceeds standard parameters. Recommend increased recruitment and integration of human forces into frontline units. They do not quit, ever. This makes them uniquely valuable in extended combat operations and high-stress environments. Further study required. The report was filed, processed, and eventually made its way up the chain of command. I do not know what happened after that. I am just an instructor. I train soldiers, watch them deploy, and occasionally I get to see them survive. But I do know that 3 months after I filed that report, human recruitment numbers tripled. 6 months after that, the coalition authorized the formation of the first all-human combat unit. 1 year after that, there were 12 such units operating across 4 sectors. and every single one of them developed the same reputation. They do not quit. They do not surrender. They take insane risks and somehow survive. They are stubborn to the point of madness and effective beyond all reasonable expectation. Jack Reeves is a captain now. Last I heard, he was training new recruits on some colony world I cannot pronounce, teaching them how to push past their limits, how to keep going when logic says stop, how to be, in short, human. I retired from the academy last cycle. 17 years was enough. I live quietly now on a small station near the core worlds, and I do not think about war very much. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that sunrise. The human crawling up the hill, the way he stood and saluted before collapsing. The moment I realized that humans were not weak at all. They were something far stranger and far more dangerous. They were unstoppable. And that, more than any weapon, any technology, any tactical advantage, is what will win wars. Not strength, not speed, not firepower. Refusal. Pure, stubborn, irrational refusal to quit. I am glad I am retired, because the galaxy has no idea what is coming. But the humans do. They have always known. They just keep going until the sun rises. Every single time.